Good morning and welcome to E39 Source. We're back in Southern California working on the E60 M5. There's been a couple differences to this car since you guys have seen it, and some videos on those parts are coming shortly. In the meantime, today we're going to be replacing, actually not replacing, putting in a kind of a bypass for the passenger seat occupancy sensor. So this will be addressing the issue that comes up on the dashboard that says passenger restraint system malfunction. I think it says, it comes up right here. Then you get a glorious bright red seatbelt safety light over here on the dashboard. Sometimes you get the airbag light. Sometimes this thing comes on yellow up here in the headliner. So the issue is there's a occupancy sensor mat installed in the seat, and as there's a passenger in the seat, it kind of completes a circuit and tells the computer, oh, somebody's sitting here. So if you're involved in an accident, this airbag located somewhere up here in the dashboard will inflate. If there's nobody sitting here, the car knows that, and if you're involved in an accident, why waste the airbag and screw up the dashboard so it doesn't inflate that airbag? Problem is the mat sensor kind of goes bad and you need to replace the occupancy sensor. I think I called BMW once. They wanted about $3,000 to do it. You have to take the seat out of the car, take all the leather off, take everything apart, replace the mat, put it back in. It's a ton of labor. It's in no way worth that. But it's also a safety concern, and it's just annoying as hell. You're driving down the road and ding, passenger restraint malfunction. And I have no patience for that. So there's a couple products on eBay that are kind of a bypass for it. It works this way. It tells the car, oh, there's always somebody sitting here. So we unplug the occupancy sensor, we plug in the bypass, and it just says, yes, the seat is occupied. It always says yes. But that presents a problem on US cars. So US cars have a regulation that the front seats have to have seatbelt sensors, knows when the seatbelt's plugged in. So now if you fool the car and tell the car that yes, there's always somebody sitting here, now it thinks that the seatbelt always needs to be connected. So in the event that there isn't somebody in the passenger, you're the only driver of the car, now there's an issue, it's always going to be complaining about the seatbelt. Yes, you could go into the body module and code that off, but the kit that we're going to be installing today is a two-part kit that we also have to tap into some pins up in here under the seat and fool it that the seatbelt is always connected as well. So sorry for the long intro, but we're fooling the car that there's always somebody in the seat and there's always a seatbelt connected. So I guess really the only safety thing here is if you are in the car, continue to wear your seatbelt. I'll put a link to the eBay store where we picked up the bypass kit. I don't know if it will always be available, but it seems to be pretty pervasive all over eBay. It's not a BMW part, this is not a BMW solution, but this is a $40 solution as opposed to a $3,500 solution. So I do tend to like things like this. But I'm just going to go through the PDF here myself. I will post the link to that below so you guys can see it. I'm not going to try to film it. I have the actual package here. It comes very well packaged with some little greeting. You get a little key fob. Somewhere in here is the actual unit. Here it is. And it's two very small parts. So this part here with the pins, that's going to be for our seatbelt. And then this thing here is for the occupancy sensor. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to do it from the rear, which means we need to put the seat, I guess I have to put the key in, all the way up and all the way forwards. Make sure that the ignition is turned off, the key is removed. There's no need to disconnect the battery, but make sure that everything is off. Then with the seat all the way up and all the way back, I can try to get down here. It's a little awkward to find the wire that we need to unplug, but it is doable. It's hiding in the shadows right there. That is the occupancy sensor. When we look at our unit here, it's going to be the same kind of 3-pole plug, and it should be brown, white, and red, just like that. So we're going to unplug the occupancy sensor and plug this into where the occupancy sensor was plugged in. Now there's a couple different switches on our unit here, and depending on where you're located, you can see how that's going to be set up. For the US and Canada BMWs, you want switch 1, 2, 3 all on. If you're in Europe, Asia, or Australia, just 1 and 2 on. So here in California, we are well within the United States, and we want all of those switches to be in the up position. And I think that's how it's shipped. All of those look like they're up top. So once we're plugged in, I just went ahead and pushed the module kind of up into some other wires and that little gray thing right there. You could zip tie it to something. This seat doesn't move around too much. I just don't want it dangling down because it could get caught on something and damage the harness. So just make sure that it is secure and pushed up out of the way. Do the same thing with the old wire from our occupancy sensor in an event that you want to plug that back in someday. Don't cut it off or otherwise destroy it. I just tucked it up inside the seat. So we're done back here. We're done with the occupancy sensor delete. Now we need to work on the passenger seat belt, kind of a hack or a trick or a bypass, so it always thinks it's plugged in. So for that, we're going to leave our seat all the way up, but now we're going to move it all the way back, and instead of having it tilted like this, we're going to tilt it up like that. So now we're in the front. I've got the seat positioned just like that, and we need to remove this black piece of trim here. This covers all the wiring for the seat. It's very easy to remove. Just get some fingers under the front lip and pull it straight out. As you can see, it's just got some prongs there that snap on this metal bar. So now we've got that out of the way, and the harness we're going to be playing with is the yellow one. Usually yellow ones make me nervous for good reason. If it's yellow, that generally means that there are airbag sensitive connections in there. So we want to be careful with how we work with this. It would not be a bad idea at all to disconnect your battery. In fact, I'm going to recommend that you do that. Disconnect the negative pole on your battery. It's a 10mm hex socket, and make sure that you put that negative cable in a way that it can't fall back on the terminal and make a connection with the battery. I've actually had this apart before, so I'm going to skip that step. But do as I say, not as I do. So I guess the first thing we need to do is kind of release it from that, so I'm going to remember how to do that, and I'll be back in a second and tell you how. So this is the tab that you just need to press towards the rear of the vehicle, and then this whole block of connections lifts up. We're not going to mess with this one here with the slant, we're going to mess with the larger one. Then there's just two black tabs right here that you just depress with your fingernail or a screwdriver or something like that, and then we get the cover to slide off. You can put the cover in a safe, dry location, and then we have our whole block of connections here that we're going to want to mess with. It might be easier if you do want to unplug this. Right here, you just pull this black thing, slides out to the side, and then our connection comes off like that. That gives us maybe a little bit more wiggle room. Maybe not, maybe it's in the way now. But one of those wires plugging into the yellow one is what we're going to be pulling out and replacing the pins on. So the plug we're going to play with is that one right there. It has a red and a black wire in it. I've already taken the red wire out. The little thing that came with the kit is this right here. It's got a red and a black. So we're going to remove the red and the black from the factory harness, pull the pins out. So to do that, you just need a small flathead screwdriver. This is a jewelry kit. And there's a tab when you look in the front of the harness here. See that textured area right above my thumbnail? You just press that down and then pull the wire out. And the way I'm looking at it right now, in this perspective, our red wire's on the far right, then we have an empty slot, then we have our black wire, and then another empty slot. So we're using pins kind of 2 and 4. If I look at it this way, it actually says, I'm trying to read what it says, I see 5 and 8. That doesn't really make any sense because there's only 4. But if we look at it that way, we're using 5 and 7. So I'm going to take out the other black one now, that's from the car harness, and slide in our black one that came with the kit. Then we're done. So what we're left with is our black little box, the red one like that, and the black one like that. We can just leave the pins from the car harness under the seat. We're going to plug this back into the yellow connector where we pulled it out, button everything back up. Don't forget to slide the cover back on the rear of the connection that we took off before. That keeps all the wires from popping back out. And when you plug that back in, if you did plug that back in, make sure that it didn't push any of the small connectors out the back. So just make sure everything's tight, slide the cover back on, pop it back into place there like we took it out. Now we're ready to pop this thing back in, and it literally goes on like that. Disconnect or reconnect your battery. I guess we can put our key in. Press your memory button, put your seat back where it goes. If you had any codes, clear them or have them cleared, and then give things a test. Fast forward about a week, we've driven this car a couple hundred miles, people in the car, people not in the car, and have not seen the warning return. So we're very happy with this. Did run into an issue. So after that last clip that you guys just watched, I reset all the things, all the warnings with the Carly, and tried to unplug the battery and plug the battery back in, and the warnings were still present consistently. So I took apart my handiwork down here, and I noted that the black pin that I just inserted into that plug did not go in all the way. You need to very gently use some needle nose pliers or something like that to make sure that it goes all the way into that housing and snaps up into the black plastic plug. There's kind of a little notch on the side of the metal pin that makes it tough to push in there, so make sure you don't damage or mangle the connector, the pin on that little black box, but make sure that it does snap all the way in the housing. Then put it back together, make sure both sides of that yellow connector down here under the seat are pushed together, and that's it. I don't think you'll need to reset it. This has been a success for us. And this video is in no way sponsored by the company, but they did include this in the order. So if you're looking to order this same thing, if you happen to be the first one to type this code in their website, you can get 15% off. So let that help somebody. But that concludes the video. All in all, it probably took about 30 minutes. I could do it again in 15 minutes now that I know exactly what I'm doing. And so far, so good. You know, if it were still broken, it definitely would have come up by now. So good product, does the job. Just continue to wear that safety belt because it won't warn you anymore. So thanks for watching. Leave any questions, comments, concerns down below, and we'll talk in the next E39 source video. Bye-bye.